Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I bow to the Lord Vasudeva. I bow to the Lord in my Guru. I bow to him in you. Because everybody, although most people aren't aware of it, is a channel of the infinite, is a child of the infinite. And really not less so than any master who ever lived, except in one little respect, that most people are asleep spiritually. They still have to wake up. There's a very interesting episode in the life of Jesus Christ that's written in the Bible, where the Pharisees, the priests of his time, were upset with him because he said that I and my Father are one. And he said in reply, don't the scriptures say, ye are gods? We are all gods. The essential difference is only that some people are awake in him and others are still asleep. That's all. The people who think that Jesus Christ was the only Son of God, they're wrong. It's Christ which is the only Son of God. Let me explain that a little bit. The infinite Spirit, beyond creation, when he dreamed creation, projected himself outward as vibrations of consciousness. Those vibrations are Om. Om is the mother aspect of God. She does the housework, you might say, of creation. The Father, the infinite Spirit, observes it, but isn't involved. But it has to be that God is also in creation. And so at the heart of all vibration, there is reflected the calm, unmoving consciousness of the Spirit. And so you have the Trinity. The real Trinity of India is not Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Those are the three aspects of Om. That vibration which produces the creation, that which maintains it, that which dissolves it back into itself. But the real Trinity, if you want to compare or to pair the Trinity of Hinduism with the Trinity of Christianity, is Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. The Father is the Spirit, observing everything from outside. The Son is that reflection of that calm, unmoving consciousness in all creation. And the Holy Ghost really is a breath. The breath of God moving across things. It's the Om, that vibration which keeps everything in manifestation. But at the heart of every atom is that calm, unmoving Christ consciousness which reflects the Spirit beyond creation. So when Jesus is called the Christ, that wasn't his birth name. He was the Christ. That means at that time, in that country, he was manifesting the Christ, which is infinite. Not that the man is the Christ, but that he was in tune. Krishna also was not a title, it was a name. Kutta Satyatanya, the infinite consciousness of which all things, in which all things exist, but that is not touched by anything. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, I am in everything but not touched by anything. That infinite Christ consciousness is the truth. Now those who are in that recognize it in one another. And many saints in India have told me what a great master. I remember just outside Delhi there was a yoga ashram there, and this man who was highly advanced. I met him, and when he heard I was a disciple of my guru, Yogananda, he said, oh, Bade Yogi the. He was a great yogi. And when I met the Shankaracharya of Kanchipuram, he said that we watched his career, and he said, as light shining in darkness, so is his presence. Such a great soul comes very rarely on earth, only when there is such a need. It is natural for human beings to want to compare one master with another master. And in fact, however, it's a mistake too. The same God has many different roles to play, and some of them seem almost contradictory. That isn't so. They are simply different parts of the divine play. Let me read you a little passage in this book, which I really recommend you get. Before I was recommending that you order it, but now it's available in bookstores. Do get it. I don't want to deprive those bookstores of their income, but the truth is, it's not a book I wrote. I did write it, but it's a book about a great master and about of recollections by a disciple of his of what it was like to live with him. I'd say that even more than my book, The Path, it really gives you the essence. It makes him three-dimensional. One day, because I used to ask him lots of questions, I asked the master why he hadn't included Ramana Maharshi among the saints in Autobiography of a Yogi, because he had met Ramana Maharshi. He replied, I didn't include him because Paul Brunton had already written about him in his book, A Search in Secret India. Though I didn't say so, I wondered whether there might not have been another reason also. For these two great masters, Paramhansa Yogananda and Ramana Maharshi, had very different roles to play. There is a book about Ramana Maharshi in which is described a visit that Yogananda paid to that ashram. Few books about the masters show real understanding of their lives. I really think that I couldn't write this book sooner than I did, because it took me many years of meditating on his life to understand things that he said, that he did, gestures, tones of voice, all sorts of things. I don't say I've understood him now. What I say is that I had to write it now, or I might never write it at all. But I do have to say that I do understand him and the episodes of his life on a deeper level than I did back then. He left his body in 1952, so that was a long time ago. But that book about Ramana Maharshi, too, suggested no inwardness in the encounter. It talked about him being emotional and so on. Well, I knew better than that. Yogananda told a brother disciple of mine, Ramana Maharshi's brother, who was known among the ashramites, as they call it in India, as something of a martinet, tried to engage me in argument. Ramana Maharshi saw him and shook his head a little sternly, saying, come away from there. I recall also the master's comment to us on his visit to the Kumbh Mela, the religious fair in Allahabad in 1936. He said of his meeting with Garapatri, a famous religious figure, I hid from him. I met Garapatri. He was still living in 1960 when I went to the Artha Kumbh Mela in Allahabad. And he was a great man, but more in politics and not as deep spiritually. So anyway, my guru, he said, I hid from him. In other words, he didn't let Garapatri perceive his spiritual stature so that he might express himself as he normally did. In other words, Garapatri was talking about these scripturally read things as if it was his experience, and Master let him talk because he wanted to hear him talk the way he normally did. But then he said that I asked him, and this is in the autobiography, I said, how much of this is your own realization, how much is from reading? And Garapatri said, my guru told us, then he understood. And he withdrew into himself, and he said, partly from realization, partly from book learning. But that was, of course, what my guru knew. Well, anyway, to go on here, he didn't let Garapatri perceive his spiritual stature so that he might express himself as he normally did. One wonders, did the master do the same thing with Ramana Maharshi? He might very understandably have held back out of courtesy, not wishing to appear a teacher in that great master's own ashram. But there was no difference between them spiritually. My guru said that he wasn't fully liberated, Ramana Maharshi. He said that Yogi Ramya was. But he said that once you've reached that stage, it doesn't matter. You may use your past karma that you're working out to bring you back to help disciples. But he said that once you're on that level, all masters are the same. You don't need to come back. It's just for other people, and you don't really care whether you come back because you're out of delusion anyway. As Ramana Maharshi obviously wasn't. But it was interesting to see, because he asked, and this is in that book, he asked the question of Ramana Maharshi, and this is what makes me wonder whether he hid a little bit, because he said, is it possible to uplift the masses? Well, my guru's mission was to uplift the masters, and Ramana Maharshi answered, no, all teaching has to be individual. Well, my guru's teaching was a lot more individual than what I've read. Ramana Maharshi always gave the same answer. Know who you are. Ask yourself, who am I? And Master talked to everybody individually. That's why some of my Guru Bhais don't understand that he could have said what he said to me. But he said it to me because that was my particular destiny, and I should know what he said. I'm not senile, and I certainly wasn't senile at that age. Another story, in 197, the following story isn't a conversation with the Master, yet it relates to his teachings. I therefore include it here. Sri Rama Yogi, whom I met in 1960 in India, said to me, always ask yourself, who am I? This was the fundamental teaching of his great guru, Ramana Maharshi. That wasn't what my own guru taught us, I replied. Sri Rama Yogi smiled wryly. If all the disciples of the great masters really understood what their gurus taught, there would not be the bickering one finds everywhere today in religion. I reflected then that of course the Master had said repeatedly, know who you really are. You are not the little ego. You are the infinite self. And so yes, he did teach that, and Ramana and Sri Rama Yogi was perfectly right in correcting me, and I was glad that he did. Because in fact the gurus do teach the same teaching. They give different emphases to the truth according to what they have experienced or according to what is needed in the times. My guru did not any longer have to think about how he got there and what his own experience was, and therefore he could reach a whole culture. That's why Lahiri Mahashai, when my guru's mother brought him to be blessed by Lahiri Mahashai when my guru was still just a babe in arms, Lahiri Mahashai said, your son will be a yogi, and as a spiritual engine he will draw many souls to God's shores. Well, you look at a freight train, and it can be very long, seem to go on forever. That's what my guru was. Many, many people will be brought back, have been brought back to God through his blessing. An avatar like that has the power to bless many people. Others who are still striving free a few others, but they're not cosmic, and so their mission also is not cosmic. This is not to denigrate anybody, because once you've reached that, you're already free. Your job in this life, don't worry about becoming even a param mukta. Worry about becoming a jivan mukta, and I don't say that worry will get you there, but I say strive to become a jivan mukta, because when you have achieved that you have, I remember my guru saying to me, you will not be safe until you have reached nirvikalpa samadhi. In that state, see, in Savikalpa Samadhi, which is a lower samadhi, there's still this little memory of ego. You feel yourself infinite, but I, the infinite, nevertheless still real Raman, when you come down to your body, you can still forget that stage and get involved in delusion. My guru said that Paul Brunton fell, and that he, because he couldn't forget he was English, is the way my guru put it to me. He got upset because of this martinet of a brother of Ramana Maharshi's, and he thought that he shouldn't take this from him kind of attitude. Well, that does happen. in your own advancement. Don't be satisfied, and for heaven's sake, don't be egotistical. Remember, you must be completely free, then nothing can touch you. You must have the experience of God. Don't think that reading the scriptures will give you anything. I'm going to sing to you a song. It's called The Philosopher and the Boatman. I think you'll enjoy it. It's got a lot of humor in it. Joy to you. The way to perfection is narrow and steep. The bypaths are many, the pitfalls are deep. By theory alone many think to arrive. Here's one who could teach them if he were alive. A philosopher stepped into a boat, the river to cross would he. So learned was he thought no man could be half so clever as he. Singing wise, oh, with his books, oh, such a mighty scholar was he. Singing wise, oh, with his books, oh, such a mighty scholar was he. To the boatman he said, good man, pray tell of the German philosophers three. Schopenhauer, Hegel und Weti Kant, whom you deem the wisest to be. Singing wise, oh, with his books, oh, such a mighty scholar was he. Singing wise, oh, with his books, oh, such a mighty scholar was he. Please excuse me, sir, the boatman said, I've not read your philosophers three. All day I'm obliged to ply these oars to support my family and me. Singing wise, oh, with his books, oh, such a mighty scholar was he. Singing wise, oh, with his books, oh, such a mighty scholar was he. In that case, my good man, your wretched life is as good as a quarter lost. Why, without the writings of those three men, not a shelf of books would I trust. Singing wise, oh, with his books, oh, such a mighty scholar was he. Singing wise, oh, with his books, oh, such a mighty scholar was he. Now then tell me, good man, the scholar said, have you studied the Frenchman Descartes? I've told you before, the other cried, I'm unschooled, hard work is my art. Singing wise, oh, with his books, oh, such a mighty scholar was he. Singing wise, oh, with his books, oh, such a mighty scholar was he. Hard work, what a waste, sad, foolish man. Half your life has been thrown away. Yet still a fragment might be redeemed. Memorize one theory a day. Singing wise, oh, with his books, oh, such a mighty scholar was he. Singing wise, oh, with his books, oh, such a mighty scholar was he. Of a sudden a storm with raging might did lash that river to foam. Like a drifting petal it tossed their boat till it seemed they'd never get home. Singing wise, oh, with his books, oh, such a mighty scholar was he. Singing wise, oh, with his books, oh, such a mighty scholar was he. Then the boatman cried, my learned sir, our chances are growing dim. 2 questions you've put me so far this trip. Now I'll ask you one, can you swim? Singing wise, oh, with his books, oh, such a mighty scholar was he. Singing wise, oh, with his books, oh, such a mighty scholar was he. I can't swim a stroke, the philosopher cried, as he clung in despair to an oar. Then the whole of your life is lost, my friend. You'll not need those books anymore. Singing wise, oh, with his books, oh, such a mighty scholar was he. Singing wise, oh, with his books, oh, such a mighty scholar was he. The boatman regrets to say his fare never reached the opposite bank. All that ponderous learning inside his head gave him weight, you see, and he sank. Singing wise with his books, oh, such a weighty scholar was he. Singing wise with his books, oh, such a weighty scholar was he.